Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Pew, 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 pew.
Pew, 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 pew.
Well, hello there, Aki.
And hello there, Stevie. It's another beautiful week to talk about Star Trek.
Are we James Mason again?
Yes, I'm James Mason at the top of the episode for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, hello to you, our listener. It is wonderful to be with you again. With us, your hosts, Stevie and Aki.
We are your hosts.
We are your hosts. Did that sound less surprised? Because sometimes when I introduce us, I sound a little surprised.
That's all right. I'll be surprised. It's us. Oh, it's us hosting your show
It's
again.
us. We're the hosts.
We're the hosts, but we're also the guests.
What?
That's not true.
No.
What? That might be a song from a different podcast. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's stardate is stardate 318615.8, and we will be discussing Star Trek Lower Decks Season 1, Episode 8, entitled Veritas.
Very good.
It's Latin for truth. Veritas is very good.
Very good. Very good.
Yes, this is an excellent episode.
It is.
The whole episode is Easter eggy. The premise is an Easter egg.
I had no idea what was going on until the very end.
Like Brad Boimler, I'm going to pretend that I knew what was going on the whole time, but I didn't. I had no idea. I thought we were getting the full judgment in front of tribunal, lives for death. The Cerritos has committed crimes against the universe, etc., etc. But maybe it was that. I don't know. We haven't run it down yet, but we're about to. Or should we run it down?
Is that? Oh, yes. I wasn't sure if you were continuing with your diatribe.
I'm the master of segues, as all who listen to this program know. It's time to run it down. Can you run it down for me?
Can you watch it stopping?
Can you run it down for me? I'd be delighted to. And full disclosure, James Mason may be back at any moment. So, we begin our episode. The ship, the Cerritos, is orbiting the planet Ketuvan Prime.
Can I ask a question? Was that one of the first times that we've seen that image of the planet with the planet name? Because I didn't notice that before.
I think so. Yeah. On Lower Decks. Yeah, I don't think they've done so that's like an Easter egg right there. Yeah, I think that whole thing was meant to give you we got like a real feeling of
OGTNG.
OG Star Trek with that. Like this is a ship around a planet, OGTNG. And the years like Cardassia Prime or whatever. Yes, Ketuvan Prime. Mariner, Boimler, Tendi, and Rutherford are thrown into a prison cell unceremoniously. They don't know why they're there. Tendi wonders if some of the ice replication she did got them in trouble. What? Boimler says he saw the senior staff taken into a different room. What? Mariner says the cell is better than like a Klingon prison cell, and she would know because she's been thrown in them. What? And just as she says that, they are lifted, like teleportedly, like not just like in the air, into a new room. And the room is dark. And then there are credits. After the credits are played, they find that they are in a room full of the primes of this planet who are chanting and playing music. And the senior staff are floating in the air in columns of light, unable to move or think or say anything. They seem like in suspended animation. Mariner says she thinks they're being put on trial. That's probably what's going on here. It's one of those like, you're captured for doing something and you're getting put on trial even though you don't know what it is kind of deals. And they're informed by the I'm going to say the prime, the main prime, the prime running this event, whose name is Clar. The prime Clar wants them to give testimony about the senior staff. And they must follow the rules. When they give testimony, they must step forward and speak into the, quote, horn of candor. which will only allow them to tell. Well, they must tell the truth if they speak into the horn of candor, because that's what candor is. So, first and foremost, Clar.
You're having trouble there, Aki.
It's doing something to my saliva.
Clar.
Sounds like a sound effect. Anyway, Clar wants Mariner to testify. They ask about a particular stardate, which I wrote down later in my notes and not at this point, so I can't find it. They say that Mariner was on the bridge on that date and was in contact with the Clicket ship called the Twerk, and they want to know about the events of that day. And so we get Mariner's story. Boom, boom, boom. Do you still have like the dream sequence sound? I wonder if that could work for this, because there's so many stories.
Yes, I do.
Otherwise, I'd have to play it on the piano. Full disclosure, I have a piano. Perfect. So we get Mariner's story. So basically, Mariner's story goes like this. And in case you're wondering, listener, yes, this is basically a Rashomon episode where everyone tells the same story about a different thing, about the same thing, and you have to piece everything together. And maybe by the end, we'll find out what truly happened on the Cerritos that day. Anyway, Mariner's doing repairs with, the regular gang. Tendi has to run out to go to the bathroom. She returns and comes back and says, hey guys, there's a red alert. They're like, red alert? How did we miss this red alert? And Rutherford says, well, okay, I've been messing with the speakers in this room to make the red alert less loud. So they all have to rush to their stations. They're going to be late because they missed that there was a red alert. On the way to the bridge where Boimler and Mariner are going, Boimler's like, we need to explain to the captain that we didn't hear the thing. And if we just tell the truth, then the captain will be cool with it and we won't be in trouble. And Mariner's like, no, absolutely not. We don't want to get Rutherford in trouble. He's our homeboy. So just follow my lead, play it cool and be cool. So they rush onto the thing. They get to their battle stations or whatever. Captain Freeman transports to the bridge and is holding a map of the Romulan neutral zone. Apparently the Clickets have fired on the Cerritos without any warning. They contact the Cerritos angrily and they demand that Freeman return the map that was stolen. And Freeman's like, oh, I didn't steal the map. It's a big misunderstanding. And so they're like, oh, let's cut off the communication. And then Freedom goes around the horn and she's basically like, oh, who should we talk to? What can we do? Should we do, Boyne was like, we could do evasive maneuvers and just run like hell. And of course, Shax is like, we should kill everybody. And the whole thing. And then when they are starting to figure it out, Freeman tells Mariner, okay, Mariner, why don't you send the Clickets a message, which Mariner interprets to mean send a warning shot to the Clicket chip, the Twerk, which of course causes the Clickets to fire back. At this point, Clar interrupts Mariner's story and is like, what are you talking about? That's crazy talk. Mariner's like, I don't know, whatever, that's what's going on. So Clara's like, confused as to how Mariner could not know what was going on in the ship. And Mariner's like, listen, sometimes I just check out. I don't know what's happening on the ship at all. And Clara's like, tell me about the map. What's the map? And Mariner's like, I didn't even know there was a map. I have no idea. So Clara holds Mariner in contempt of the proceedings. And they have the beam lift her up and hold her over the Tank of Contempt that's full of eels, of course. Meanwhile, Boimler says something. He's like, listen, no, that's Mariner's story is true. I was there. That's how it went down. And so Clara's like, fine, you guys don't know anything with your petty minds. So Clara calls on Rutherford, assuming that because Rutherford has his cybernetic implants, that he will have perfect memory. And so Clara asks about the events of, and here's the stardate, ladies and gentlemen, 57791.1. I'm your Southern lawyer. So we get Rutherford's story. Do you want to hit me with that dream sequence flashback? Rutherford is working on rotating the EPS conduits, capacitors, when he's approached by Shax and Billup. And they ask, hey, do you have the Romulan flight manuals and repair info in your implant? And Rutherford's like, yeah, I can after an update. And Billups was like, order an update. And Rutherford's like, I really prefer to update while I'm sleeping because then things can get wrong. And Billups was like, get that update. So he updates and they start to talk to him about a plan. But as soon as they start talking, he completely blacks out. When he wakes up, he's in front of two unconscious Vulcans who are partially undressed, and Shax is congratulating him for knocking them out using a Vulcan neck pinch. And so Rutherford's like, oh yeah, my implant must have taken over motor control while I was out. And they're on a ship. Billups flies them over a museum. And then the ship opens up and he's like, they get their own, like, they're going to do like a combat jump out of the ship. And Rutherford's trying to figure out what's going on, but then they jump out of the ship and Rutherford blacks out again. When he wakes up, he's in the museum underneath a Romulan bird of prey ship. And Shax is trying to get on board that thing, and he tells Rutherford to keep an eye out because they got to do some stuff. A Vulcan guard shows up, and Shax tells Rutherford to distract the guard using the fan dance, which Rutherford has, I guess, in his implant. So he starts to do the fan dance, and he blacks out again. And when he wakes up, he's standing in space on top of a cloaked bird of prey, and he sees Billups and Shax, and Billups is suffering from nitrogen intoxication because there's no oxygen left in his spacesuit or whatever. So Rutherford, using his implants, manages to get Shax and Billups into the air dock, and then he passes out again. When he wakes up this time, he's on a Gorn planet in the middle of a wedding ceremony, and he sees the Gorn, and they look at him, and they get upset, and they start to attack him, and he starts to black out again, but he's like confident. He's like, oh, thank God for my implant. I should be fine. But when he wakes up from passing out, this made me laugh out loud, and still does. They were still coming at him. He only blacked out for like a second. Anyway, that was Boimler's thing, and Boimler gets interrupted by Clar, who's like, why were you at a Gorn wedding, and what, and how did you get there? And Rutherford says that's all that he remembers, and then Clar asks for like more information about the bird of prey, and Boimler starts to wonder, why would they be stealing a bird of prey in the first place? But Clar now has Rutherford over the Tank of Contempt, and so Tendi defends Rutherford. Clar is like, okay, Tendi, why don't you tell me more? Because you look like you've got a secret to tell. And that's when Tendi tells her story. Hit me with the flashback music, please.
So many.
It's a Rashomon episode. There's going to be flashbacks. It's all flashbacks. We're putting the story together. Something's going on with the Romulan neutral zone. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, so Tendi is talking to Mariner. She's super excited that her assignment is to clean up the conference room. And Mariner's like, I don't know why you're excited about that. But Tendi's like, whatever. I'm just going to clean. And so Tendi is cleaning the conference room and apparently there's a lot of fur on the chairs from Dr. Tiana, who's a cat. Ransom enters with 3 like officers, and they're all in the same the black ops onesie, the SEAL clothes. And Ransom asks Tendi if she is the cleaner, and Tendi says, yeah, totally. But obviously Ransom is talking about something completely different. The cleaner being some kind of title for their mission, but Tendi thinks he's talking about the conference room. So Ransom begins the brief, and he's telling everyone what they're going to do on their mission. But Tendi's so excited about being there that she doesn't like catch anything in the brief. And then Ransom pulls out a map of the Romulan neutral zone. And Tendi's like, what? And they have to find a package, right? So they go and get a package. And if they have trouble, Tendi is the one who's going to extract them. And then they all, go, yeah, we're going to do this. And then Tendi is like freaked out, but they throw her a phase rifle. They get on the cloaked bird of prey, and Tendi is super nervous, and she's going to try to tell everyone that maybe they've made a mistake. She's not supposed to be, quote, the cleaner on this mission. But every time that she's going to tell someone something, they all have to suddenly be silent because they're being scanned by a ship. The ships grow from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 every time Tendi's about to talk. It's very funny. They get scanned over and over again. By the end, Tendi's so upset, she decides not to mention anything. When they get to Romulus, the bird of prey decloaks. Ransom and Tendi get into their stealth uniforms. They get on the transporter. Tendi tries to say again that she shouldn't be here, but it's too late. They go down into the Romulan facility. Tendi has to knock out 2 people right away with some martial arts, or like Orion martial arts. Tendi has to guard the entrance. The team runs in. They get the package. They run out. And then as they run past Tendi, they're like, do your thing. And Tendi then knocks out a charging group of Romulans with some martial arts. And the team is like, that's not what we thought you were going to do. We thought you were going to beam us out. They return with the package. Ransom was like, good work, team, in the conference room. They say, the Romulan High Council is none the wiser. And then everyone leaves, and Ransom comes over to Tendi and goes like, hey, you did great on that mission. Even though we can never admit that we did it, you're a great cleaner. And the package is left in the room, leaning against the wall. So back in the big judgy room with the Tank of Contempt, Clara's like, okay, Tendi, I don't believe a word of what you're saying. There's no way you could have taken out multiple Romulan guards all by yourself. Tendi is also like, okay, sure, plausible deniability. Wink, wink, wink. So Clar has Tendi grabbed by the beam and drops them all on into the Tank of Contempt with the eels, and then also fire starts up, and Mariner's like, why would you have eels and fire? It seems like there's too much going on there. So all that's happening, and Clan, oh my God, I can't. Clar basically is like, you will tell us what was in the package, or you will all be eaten by the eels. But basically, they don't know what happened. And so Boimler says, listen, we're Starfleet and we're lower decks. We very rarely know what the bridge crew is doing. Even though Clar doesn't believe that. Clar's like, everyone in Starfleet knows everything all the time. That's how Starfleet works. And Boimler's like, the staff doesn't tell us what's going on. And he mentions a bunch of stuff like when Qs show up and nobody knows what is going to happen there. And he mentions things like Picard not knowing the Borg before he met them and causing a big problem. And Dr. Crusher getting it on with that thing that lived in her grandma's old lamp that she got. It's a creepy episode. Yeah.
So creepy, that one. Fun fact, though.
Yes.
The actor whose name I have completely forgotten now. Do you ever remember The Adventures of Zorro from the 90s?
Of course.
That was Zorro. That actor was Zorro.
What?
His name was like Rene someone or other. Hang on. Let me search it for you. Should we do a little Google?
I think we should Google that.
If you want to know, you can Google that.
Wait, I'm trying to remember what the character looked like in the that episode with Beverly.
It was the 80s? Good Lord.
Oh, Zorro? Yeah, it wasn't the 90s.
Oh, well, I got that wrong.
It was the 80s? Good Lord.
Good Lord. What was wrong with me?
Saints preserve us. Parting is such sweet Zorro. Sure, I'll take it.
Duncan Regehr. Is that right?
My joke? I said parting is such sweet Zorro. That's pretty good. That's pretty okay. They can't all be winners.
It was Duncan Regehr.
Duncan Regehr. Regehr. I am Zorro. Prepare to be destroyed.
Random aside, sorry.
Yep, nope. These were important things we discussed. So, Clar finally realizes that the ensigns think that they're putting the senior staff on trial. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Not true. Apparently, this is a celebration because Clar was the package and had to be saved from Romulan territory. And all the various things that we heard from everyone's account went into saving Clar from captivity by the Romulans. And it's supposed to be a big party. And they wanted to like use the account that the crew gave to like chisel a story on the history stone and everything like that. Oh, and it's very stupid ending. Anyway, the beams are beams of celebration, and he wants to ask more questions, but he only rented out the room that he's holding this celebration in for like
22 minutes, which happens to be roughly the length of an episode.
It's the length of an episode. Exactly. And so they have to go, and Freeman and the bridge crew are lowered, and Mariner continues to argue with Clar about the whole thing, and Freeman just drags Mariner away while she is still like arguing with Clar about why they did all that, and Clar is complaining about how she ruined the party. On the Cerritos, Freeman basically says to the ensigns, well, you could have gotten us all killed. That was terrible. But I like how you all stuck up for Starfleet. You showed some real gumption. In the future, we will try to be more straightforward about what's going on in the ship with the lower decks crew so that you're not completely out of the loop. And then all the ensigns start asking questions like, what happened with this? What happened with that? And Freeman and the senior staff are like, it's all classified. Now get out. And they are dismissed. And as they leave, Mariner's like, hey, you know what? I like being left in the dark because I don't want to know stuff. That just means like more work for me. Boimler, as I referenced earlier in our episode of this podcast, pretended that he knew it was a party all along. Mariner points out that he was actually crying, so there's no way that's true. And as they're talking, guess who should show up in the halls of the Cerritos? None other than Q.
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 Oh, wait, I have a
and challenges them to a... Oh, you do?
Jean-Luc, sometimes I think the only reason I come here is to listen to these wonderful speeches of yours.
He challenges them to a duel, and they're like, no, we're not going to play with you, Q. Why don't you go mess around with Picard? And Q follows him saying, oh, Picard's no fun. All he does is quote Shakespeare and make wine. It sucks. And that is the end of episode 8 of season 1 of Star Trek Lower Decks, entitled Veritas.
Should we get some egg on our faces, Arky?
Good night and hello everyone out there in Easter Egg Land. As usual, I'm your host, Augie Berbice, here at the news desk. We go immediately to Stevie Mans there at the egg desk. Stevie, what have you got for us today?
Well, hi there, Augie. Hi there. How you doing? How you doing? Always good to see you.
Doing great. Pleasure.
Good to see you. Good to see you. We had quite a few Easter eggs in this episode, as we always do when it comes to Star Trek Lower Decks. And one of my favorite ones, I'm just transitioning into a normal voice, one of my favorite ones was Rogo Danar versus Khan.
Oh, yes. I forgot they were talking about that in the beginning. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Mariner and Boimler were having a biggest badasses off competition, and who was the biggest badass? And Boimler was like, "Hey, it's Rogo Danar," and Mariner was like, "What are you talking about? No one even knows who he is. It's Khan. Blah 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 blah. Khan." And I think that was sort of meant to be a bit of a deep cut versus people that just sort of think they love Star Trek. Indeed. And for anyone listening, and if you don't know Rogo Danar, don't worry. I thought Rogo Danar was another guy whose name began with R. He was the rather good-looking rogue chap.
Another guy whose name started with an R. He was a rather good-looking rogue chap?
Yeah, he was a rogue. He was one of the rogue people, and he had his own ship, and he was sort of his own person.
A rather good-looking in TNG?
It wasn't him, yes.
Good-looking
I don't think Riker liked him because Deanna had a bit of a crush on him, and as
Yeah.
did every woman on the ship.
Well, Riker. Oh, I remember that character, but not their name.
Yeah. But anyway, it wasn't him. That's who I thought it was, but it wasn't him. Rogo Danar was somebody who was being kept or held captive in a prison, and he escaped. And I think he had been bred as some sort of almost a kind of born type character to be
sleeper agent. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And then I think they were deemed too dangerous, and they were kept in captivity. Anyway, and he managed to outsmart Picard, although briefly. So anyway, and that's who Boimler had his money on.
Do you think when they made Roga Danar, they were like, "We're going to make a Khan for Picard," and then they were like, "This is no good. Never mind."
Maybe, I don't know. It would be a fun character to re-explore.
They already had Q.
They already had Q.
Yeah.
Q is probably
it's Picard's Khan.
But
for sure.
But Q wasn't really sort of a match for Picard. He was all-knowing, but he wasn't, soulful humanity type. He was sort of the cynic.
He was all-knowing. Well, that's kind of the vibe,
I guess. All right. Well, anyway, that was my first one, and then a DS9 reference that was in there with a TNG reference, and it was Mariner was talking about getting kicked off the ship and living on Earth, and she said there's nothing to do but hang out all day at vintners and soul food restaurants, which is a bit of a Ben Sisko reference there.
Oh, yes. Daddy Sisko.
Oh, and Rutherford, there was a little reference, and Rutherford said he doesn't know how to do the Vulcan neck pinch, which I thought was quite cute.
That's right.
Fun fact about this episode, 2 characters were voiced by Kenneth Mitchell from Star Trek Discovery, who has ALS, actually voiced 2 of the characters in this, and I think he, in Discovery, he is, you may know him or remember him as Cole, and in this episode, he was, I think it was the Star Trek captain, and he also voiced a Federation guard.
I like it.
Which I thought that was quite a cute little thing to know. Let's see, did I have a last one? Oh, and Billups. So I think when Billups is getting attacked, he says, or he's running out of, he's got nitrogen poisoning. He says, "Tasha, no, the garbage bag's behind you." Which obviously a little reference to Tasha Yar and her untimely death.
And also Shax's weird fantasies of saving Tasha's life or something.
Yes, that too. Did you have any Easter eggs there, Aki? Was there anything you wanted to mention there?
I did not have any. I mean, none of my Easter eggs were that interesting. Obviously, I thought the whole tribunal thing, which gets turned on its ear when they're like, "No, I rented out this hall for a party," and obviously Q showing up at the end was a great tag, and saying, "Oh, I don't want to hang out with Picard. He sucks. All he wants to do is quote William Shakespeare and make wine." But were there any other No, I mean, my whole thing with this episode was I enjoyed the Rashomon quality of the storytelling, where everyone has to tell, you have to sort of piece it together in like a hour-long dramatic Star Trek. That would be the whole episode. It would be like, and then Data's part of the story, and you'd figure out that this whole thing happened. But here it was just a celebration of Clar's freedom from the Romulans. So thank you very much, Stevie, for your information from the Easter egg desk. We will report back in next week to find out about more Easter eggs on episode 9.
Thank you, Augie. Over to you.
Thank you. Back to me. And back to you. And back to me saying, yes, it's time for quotable moments.
Quotable moments.
Okay. I had a few. I wrote down the Roga Dinar thing, but it's not really. You mentioned everything. He totally outsmarted Picard, his amazing hair, yada, yada, yada. Karn, Noonien Singh Khan. Did I say Karn? Oh, boy. I tried to say Khan and Gorn at the same time. Noonien Singh Khan. Oh, that was the other Easter egg. Gorn, the Gorn planet. Gorns, more Gorns. There was Gorns in the last episode.
Oh, yes, of course, the Gorn. Yes, there was lots of Gorns. There was 2 things from the last 2 episodes, and one was the secret, stupid black outfit for like the ninja undercover thing that they wore in the last episode.
Yes.
And they also had Gorns in
That's
the last
right.
episode. So I was
These
like,
2 episodes were
doubling up on those 2 things.
Gorns and secret missions. I really enjoyed, I think maybe my favorite quote of the whole thing was when they're in Mariner's story, when they're on the deck and Boimler, Mariner, oh my God, Freeman is asking everybody like, hey, okay, what are we going to do? We need suggestions, people. And everyone's trying to come up with ideas. And Captain Freeman says, come on, there's no wrong answers. And then Boimler says, well, okay, we could do evasive maneuver 88. And we get one of our rare but always delightful bleeps in Lower Decks when Tiana says, is he bleeping serious? I really enjoyed that. Because he obviously had no idea what he was doing. I think I like the cue at the end. He says, I challenge you all to a duel. Pick your weapons. I pick the mind. I just like that. That was funny. It's so very stupid. And they're like, get out of here, Q. You're an idiot. And finally, I enjoyed Clar's parting words. He says, today didn't have to end in eels. Oh, computer, show me where I came from. So, et cetera, et cetera. I can't remember the quote that I loved so much from Discovery Season 3. Anyway, those are my, oh, computer. I probably wrote it somewhere on my wall because it's my favorite thing ever. We could do evasive maneuver 88. Do you have any? Sorry.
I do, yes.
I am cracking myself up over here. What do you got?
You are just having fun by yourself. One of my favorites at the very beginning was, I'm not supposed to be here. I have a pottery class at 0900.
Yes.
Yeah, I just thought that was cute. And when Boimler was struggling to come up with a suggestion, Captain Freeman said, I'm not asking you to kiss my ass. Which I thought was quite amusing.
Yeah.
And Mariner to Tendi, how are you so excited? You'll just be cleaning cat fur off chairs. And then afterwards, she's like, how come I never get to clean
Mariner,
conference rooms?
that's right. She's like, how come I don't get to clean conference rooms?
Yeah, that was everything I had.
Mariner would have made a great the cleaner on that mission. She probably would have killed everyone.
Yeah. I did quite like in that episode that they bleeped everything out, because I was like,
yes.
bleeps, and they often bleeped the wrong thing.
Yes.
Or missed it. It was quite amusing.
It was.
Oh, there was actually a little deep cut there. When the 2 Vulcans who were about to get jumped are walking along, they're like, hey, you know who I don't like? The Remans.
Yes.
And if you remember the Remans, it's from, I think it was Nemesis.
Yes. Nemesis was the final TNG episode. Movie. Yeah.
And that was the planet, I think. Yes, that was the planet that effectively gets destroyed, and he's all like, oh, it's Kirk's fault. Okay,
so shall we move on to next time?
Let's.
Next time on Set Phasers.
Hey, and next time on Set Phasers, we'll be, nope, not going to use that voice. Next time on Set Phasers, we'll be moving into the final couple episodes of season 1 of Star Trek Lower Decks. Even though I recently saw a post that they're already recording season 3, the voice acting for season 3.
I was confused because I think there was a post and it was Tendi Newman, and she had her 2 fingers up and then said season 3, and I wasn't sure if they were recording season 2, but season 3 was approved. It was all very confusing.
I thought she was just throwing up a peace sign as she was recording and saying recording season 3.
Yes, but it was confusing because there was 2, and then I assume 2 has been
Of
recorded.
course, it's done. The 2's coming out in a couple weeks. That's why we're covering it right now, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Anyway,
Let's go.
next time we'll be covering the penultimate episode of season 1 of Star Trek Lower Decks, entitled Crisis Point. And it will be a heavy one. Whoa. So please join us. Stay with us as we continue
our continuing mission.
Our continuing mission. Meow, 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 meow. Thank you for joining us. And if you enjoyed the program, you can go back and catch some back episodes on our stream, our feed rather, and you can catch it every Monday wherever podcasts come from. We've covered all 3 seasons of Discovery, of Star Trek Discovery, the first season of Star Trek Picard, and in a couple weeks, we will have covered all of the first season of Star Trek Lower Decks. And what will we do then? No one knows.
No one knows.
No one knows.
And of course, if you want to catch us and maybe find out what we are going to do, it might be on our social media, and you can follow us. We are at Set Phasers Podcast and at Set Phasers on the Facebook and the Instagram.
And if you want to support our continuing mission, as aforementioned, to discover what else Star Trek has in store for us, we'd only be delighted. You can surprise us, but please don't. Let us know you're coming. You can patronize us, though. We can take it by going to patreon.com/setphasers.
Well, that's all from us here at Set Phasers. I'm Stevie Mans. We'll see you next time.
And I'm Aki Berbice, and this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Computer. And program.
Computer and the program. Computer and the program.